This is an NBC News special report.
A verdict has been reached in former President Donald Trump's New York criminal trial.
We are looking at count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty.
There are guilty verdicts from our producer inside. We're hearing guilty on 1 through 5. 1 through 12, we have now 13, 14 guilty.
Count 16. Donald Trump found guilty, 16 out of 16, when it comes to falsifying business records in the first degree.
Some cheers, some boos, as we are now getting the information from the jury. We're up to 18 counts, 19 guilty.
I'm being told the former president has been found guilty of counts 20 through 23, found guilty as well.
Count 23 guilty. Count 24 guilty.
Count 25 guilty. Count 26 guilty. Count 27, we're seeing that on screen, guilty. Count 28 guilty. Those are the first 28 felony counts here as read by the jury. Count 29 guilty. Count 30 guilty. Count 31 guilty. Count 32 guilty. Count 33 and 34 guilty. That is Donald J. Trump, defendant in New York versus Donald Trump, found guilty on all 34 felony counts. That is how the news broke. We're joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Bob Woodward, associate editor at The Washington Post, known for reporting on the Watergate scandal that ultimately contributed to the end of the Nixon presidency. Also very relevant tonight, the author of the Trump tapes, where he interviewed then-President Trump 20 times. He's also the author of over 20 other books, including books on the last 10 presidents. Bob, I really appreciate you joining us tonight at this pivotal time. Thank you. Your thoughts on the verdict?
Well, you know, I've been obviously thinking about this, and I think what's so important is the criminal conviction, but also there's a subtext to all of this, and that is it has shattered the camouflaged world and life that Trump has had. I mean, it is a body blow to that. And when I did these interviews with him in 2020, the last year of his presidency, I should have brought the audio of it, but this is a selection. So Trump comes on and he says, I have a reputation for not being willing to apologize. It's wrong. I will apologize if I'm wrong. I asked, when's the last time you apologized? Trump, oh, I don't know, but I think over a period I would apologize. Here's the thing, I'm never wrong. Now that's part of the camouflage, the clubbiness of, well, we know better, we joke about these things. The dagger has been put in this with this indictment and conviction. And just today, this morning, he's talking, and this is again the way he deals with the reality. This morning he talks about violent crime in New York City. He said at all levels, it's awful. Nobody's ever seen it this bad. Now the facts are, back in 1990, there were 2,200 murders a year. It's down 83%. All crime is down. But in this cavalier way, you know, it's not that way. Well, he is wrong. And I think we're going to see the evaporation of that camouflage that he's been living in. And that's the other side of this. We're going to see, and we saw it this morning, he actually prepared a series of untruths to try to defend himself. And I know him very well, having done 3 books and spending the last year of his presidency talking to him. And this is a man who's lost his footing, and he, in a sense, has lost his cover of that clubbiness.
We have times in our history where there's an ebb and flow of whether systems and the government leadership institutions are seen as working or not. And as I mentioned, you've covered and lived through much of that in your career. Do you see this as a potential return to that? There was so much hand-wringing over how to put a former president on trial, whether it would be fair. And I said this before the verdict, regardless of what it was, that we were going to honor it and the rule of law, that there were people on the jury who said they watch Fox News, they get their main information from Trump's Truth Social. And yet we came together and we got a verdict under the rule of law. Is that ultimately a good thing and a possible way forward?
Certainly, and I was really surprised. I didn't think that jury would be able to. It really. Wait a minute! They said the verdict is in. I couldn't believe it. I was sure there would be people on that jury who were Trump supporters, and we know the Trump rule is you don't have to deal with facts. You don't. You just kind of do your own thing. And for them to come in and do this, I think it's a change in the whole spirit of the times. And I think not only does Trump have to deal with that, but I think this country has to deal with that. Hey, wait a minute. There is accountability. We're not gonna kind of skate around this. We're not gonna have, again, I say, that camouflage that, and Trump is the embodiment of that. And it's stripped away.
It's very interesting when you talk about that being stripped. The one direct comparison we'll make to Nixon is he left office under a cloud of investigation, but the pardon preempted that process. Now, I'll be careful to remind everyone that was a legal process because the president, even a successor with his own relationship, has that legal authority. But it did short circuit what other things might have been. In this case, it is only the sovereign local prosecutor of a state that's doing this. The federal process is different. The Supreme Court slowed that down. And I want to play briefly some Nixon and Trump. Take a listen, Bob.
When the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
You have to give a president full and total immunity.
This is a long-running clash between many presidents in both parties who say they honor the limits on the office and then some who don't. Your thoughts on all of that tonight, Bob?
Well, but the power here is a jury went away for a very short period of time, and be fascinated to hear them speak and how they reached this verdict. But the verdict leapt over a lot of history and expectation here, and I think it's obviously the conviction is a big moment, but this undermining of a system where somebody like Trump could protect himself, that, I mean, it's, to be direct, it's the boys' club. And the boys' club got shoved in the back room yesterday.
Journalism has an interplay with law enforcement. The police, the prosecutors, the FBI, if it's federal, they can't surveil and track everything. So as you know, there's an interplay, and sometimes it goes one way or the other, and who's finding information first. This now convicted felony crime, Bob, started with Donald Trump's effort to control and subvert media information through a tabloid, that ultimately was exposed by journalists and then investigated both by the feds and now in New York. Your thoughts on that, and is it important that we continue to have independent investigative journalists who aren't looking at this through a party lens, but who are creating the information reservoir that then the system can assess?
But that journalism needs to not be partisan. It needs to be fact-driven. And in doing this for over 50 years, you often find somebody will tell you something, or there'll be a document, or there'll be a question from an editor of what's really going on here? What's behind this? What does it mean? And if you have the freedom to explore that in a fact-driven journalism, there are going to be new dimensions. And this is not journalism doing this. This is the criminal justice system in one city. And where Trump was talking about, oh, well, all this crime is rampant, he has a particular way of saying nobody's ever seen it as bad as it is now. And you kind of think, gee, maybe he's right. Well, in the case of crime in New York City, crime in cities throughout the country, it's down. It's down. It's radically down. And he can get on that sled of